Some skeptics were convinced that captive-bred lions could never be released into the wild. Would the lions be able to fend for themselves? Would their social structures remain intact? Would they be able to successfully hunt? Follow this engaging African story of a few extraordinary people working with extraordinary lions. Known as Alert, this groundbreaking program has one mission: return Africa's lion population back to its former glory. A quick recap of the stars of the program. Beginning with the Stage 1 walking lions, Paza and Pena. Now 9 months old, these female cubs are growing up beautifully, and their learning curve is on the up. Our other walking pair of female cubs, Lewa and Laili, are now 13 months old and keeping everything on their toes. The 4 MKs. These highly spirited cats will always be a force to be reckoned with. The formidable Cs, the other vehicle encounter pride. All over 3 years old, this tree-loving foursome is still our top strike force, and you'll get to meet them in future episodes. Our pride and joy, the Ngamo Pride. Released into the 400-acre Ngamo site over 2 years ago as a pride of 7, has now grown into a healthy pride of 12. As the flagship of the program called Alert, this pride is making groundbreaking strides and astounding the researchers day by day. In the last episode, we left you with Kwali tackling a zebra.
Go, 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 go!
Find out if Kwali managed to hang on. Milo plays tug of war with little Amadi. Laili and Lewa go on an outing that leads to something out of the ordinary. The Ngamo Pride Creche is a continual source of amusement. Fire has to be darted to keep the balance in the pride healthy. Paza shows off her highly possessive nature with an unsuspecting tortoise. And Milo demonstrates why he wears the pants around here. After releasing more zebra into the Ngamo site last night, Ray has discovered Kwali's zebra kill.
We've just found the pride on a fairly recent zebra kill. We believe it's one of the stallions we saw fleeing last night. Yeah, they've taken off a fair chunk, about 60–70% already. We've got Kenge's, one of Kenge's little girls there, tucking in next to Milo. He's more than often quite lenient with the younger cubs. Not good news for the zebra, but good news for these guys. They haven't had a zebra kill in quite some time, so really good news. I'm really happy they've made this kill. Fire's still feeding, but Nani is edging her way in. And she's edging a bit too close. Yeah.
Wakanaka, the 1-year-old female cub, is also trying a submissive approach. But Milo is not budging.
That's amazing. Okay, Milo's decided he needs to move the meal, which is perfectly normal. He'll move it into the shade now, into denser vegetation, just to hide from any vultures that might congregate, just to keep it out of the sun. The cub's having a free ride. He'll do this on and off throughout the day.
While Milo hogs the lion's share, the rest of the pride set their attention on something else.
I've just seen some zebra coming through Masai Mara area into Serengeti, about 200 metres or so away, 250 metres, and Kwali's picked up and headed flanked straight through the grass towards them, and Fire and Ashanti follow, but they seem to have lost interest. Even though they've fed, they're opportunistic, so if an opportunity arises for another meal, they'll go for it.
We join Laili and Lewa on a typical morning walk with volunteers, handlers and tourists. The walking lions get to do this twice a day, and they thoroughly enjoy exploring the ins and outs of this 3,000-acre reserve. Affectionate Lewa always has time to greet the cameraman in her own special way, while aloof Laili continues with her daily regime of seeking prey. These walks generate funding towards the project, as well as create great outdoor opportunities to fine-tune the lion's skills and muscle tone. Today we have a VIP guest, legendary cricket spinner Ray Price. Ray's in for a treat, no doubt.
The paws are a very sensitive area for the lions, so when they bite each other on the paws, that's when they start getting a bit aggressive with each other. And these lions that we're walking with now, they've actually killed. Lewa killed at 9 months old. She's the second youngest lioness to ever kill in this program. She killed a 6-month-old kudu. Laili's also killed as well, again a kudu, but it was a very young kudu. She actually ran off in the walk and we were trying to keep up with her, and then we came across her on the rocks and there she was on top of it. So both of these lions are very adept at hunting. Yeah. And it just goes to show that captive bred lions can kill, especially at 9 months old. Very,
That's
very
young.
Very young.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with the walkers later. For now, we go over to Ray Kukesh to see her discovery.
This is a zebra with a pretty bad wound on its rump. Looks like the lions were giving it a good chase. It's really deep. I don't know how much longer that one will last. That'll probably be the next one they take off. You can more than likely the lion is given chase and grabbed from behind. Usually one of the end's favourite moves. Not really a nice sight, but I'm in favour of the lions. These three, we've been calling them the three ninjas because they've outdone the lions so often. They're often quite mobile, but this poor guy, the other two are obviously picked up, and you can see he's taking the weight off that back leg. It's very, very deep, that wound. So that I can't imagine they'll go much further, and when the lions turn up, they'll know straight away to go for him. Not only will they be able to see and smell it, they'll hear it in the irregular movements when he's running.
So I've just been called out on the radio to come and see a big python that has eaten something quite large. So it's always nice to come and see. These pythons are quite hard to come by. Big ones like this. This one's probably about 3 meters or so. Eaten something fairly large. We came, we had a look, and then fortunately realized it wasn't alive. It seems to have swallowed a stick, which is coming all the way down its body. Having no hands, a python doesn't really have, or any snake really doesn't have a choice of what it's eating when it grabs its food. So this one, obviously in the tussle with what it was eating, picked up a stick along the way and has swallowed half of it, which seems to have possibly been the cause of its death. Very unfortunate. A snake like this is probably about 25-30 years old, and a nice specimen. Obviously living well, eating big prey. and a very unfortunate accident. The lions on their way now, I think they're going to be quite hesitant of it in the beginning. Pythons are known killers of lion cubs, and I think you'll find them snarling a bit, I think you'll find them hissing. They'll be very interested, obviously. Curiosity killed the cat, and they are cats, but I think they're eventually going to tuck into it and actually make a meal of it, and end up enjoying it. Hey, this stick comes here.
Yeah.
Comes here. This is the hooves of what I think it ate an impala. The elephant guy says they found a baby impala running around here, so I think this is the mother. And the hooves are here, but I mean this stick goes all the way down. I was pulling at it just now. It started pulling up from over here. Here's the stick here.
How did it not?
They're the only specially protected animal, reptile in Zimbabwe. These pythons. Yeah. And because of the trade on their skin is quite sought after in the animal trade. Southern African rock python is actually.
Laili and Lewa catch up and curiosity takes over. Laili, being the dominant of the two, takes the initiative as she can't resist a free meal.
Laili's come and is very interested in it. She's playing around with it a bit, and now she's actually broken into it. You see the fur coming through. She's broken straight into the stomach, and it confirms it's an impala. It's quite a big one. Laili's the bigger lion, and that plays quite a big part in a lion pride. Bigger means stronger, means more dominant. You can see she's snarling, growling towards Lewa, who's the smaller, less dominant one. That's how life is in a lion pride. The dominant lion will always eat the lion's share, and the less dominant will get whatever's left. Sorry, Lewa will get something, but she'll have to work her way in slowly. She's just eating a pile of meat. I just want to see how much stick has actually gone inside this animal. It appears to be quite deep inside there, and I most certainly would have done some damage. Pretty convinced this is the cause of death for this thing.
Yeah.
That's how much of it I've just pulled out of the snake's stomach. The discoloration in the stick, you can see it was at least up to here down the snake's throat. That's you see the end of it here. So the snake hasn't really done much for them, but it looks like they're actually almost pulling the impala out of the snake's stomach. That's fresh game meat for them there, and an easy one at that. 10% of the lion's intake is actually scavenged, and this is a pure prime example of it. So they're actually eating on the impala now as opposed to the snake, and it looks like it's about to come out of the stomach completely.
Oh, it's so special to interact with these animals, and they're such a top predator, so to actually be touching them and playing with them and just working with them, being around them, an amazing place. I recommend it for anybody in the world. There's not many places, let alone inside Africa, where you can do this, let alone outside. Don't want to get too close, you're going to start playing with me like I'm a hamster.
Moving back to the Ngamo site, it looks like some of the females have seen the injured zebra that Ray discovered earlier. With the last rays of light disappearing fast, it looks like Kenge and Kwali are biding their time and waiting for darkness to fall. They will also need to screen the cubs from view to be more effective. They've been spotted, and the zebra find the gap. The ninja zebra live up to their names once again. As time passes, the pea lions are growing up into fantastic walking lions. This morning, they are about to set off for a walk with tourists and volunteers. Just to be able to stroke a lion and feel or see their claws close up is a big attraction for everyone. But to actually join them on a walk or hunt is an extra bonus. Now over a year old, they've packed on muscle, and with that comes a confident spirit, capable of stalking prey twice their size. It's not long until they hone in on impala, zebra and hartebeest. The peas have taken particular interest in this herd of zebra. These Antelope Park zebra know the difference between young lions and fully grown lions and linger tantalizingly longer. They would never do this with the bigger MK Pride, and the game is on. The stallions generally decide whether to stand and fight or flee. On this occasion, it's the latter, and the lions love chasing anything that moves. We'll leave the peas here and get back to the lodge, where one of the resident vervet monkeys is taking great delight in the camera lens. At the same time, the little cubs in the Ngama release site are also energetic, and Ray catches up with their activity.
Queen Elizabeth I said it when she went to war with Spain. All her governors were telling her not to, it wasn't worth it, blah, 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 and she was like, "Excuse me, sirs, I may not be a lion, but I am a lion's cub and I have a lion's heart," and just disappeared off and went to war and did quite well.
It's the perfect scene, and the cubs are doing so well in this mini creche. Little Cora is testing her mum Kengi's tolerance levels, while Milo looks on, hoping not to be disturbed for the day. With the grass being so high, a small herd of zebra unwittingly walk by and get discovered immediately. Wakanaka and some of the females are instantly focused, and the zebra choose to make a hasty exit. Wakanaka makes the first move and investigates further, leading some of the adult females into the tall grass for cover. Ray needs a better viewpoint and eagerly follows the lions. The zebra and lion have run off into thick vegetation out of sight, and Ray cannot go further. It's early morning with Ray and the Ngama pride, and rain has energized the cubs.
So we came in very early this morning, about 4 AM, hoping to see some hunting, maybe a kill. But we found the pride belly up, fast asleep, still full by Waterhole 2. We then came back in at 6 and we've had a herd of zebra not too far from these guys resting. Wakanaka actually took the initiative while the rest were sleeping and flanked into the grass. We lost visual, but then we saw she's actually managed to split the herd. Meanwhile, the one lone zebra that was separated ran into Milo. Milo did nothing, but Kwali was hot on its tail, got within 5 meters, but unfortunately didn't manage to catch.
It's wonderful to see Wakanaka at only 14 months old, taking hunting very seriously, and coming so close to making her first kill.
And they've just regrouped here. The zebra aren't too far from where we are now. They have approached, and these guys are still vigilant, so maybe they'll pick up again later on. It's starting to get a bit warm now, so they're probably just going to sleep for the next few hours.
The adults will certainly try to sleep, but not with 4 very inquisitive cubs around. The Ngama pride currently has a safe, sustainable number of lions for a release site of this size. Any more cubs would put this out of balance, and Ray has noticed fire coming into Estrus. With this in mind, the research team have decided to insert a contraceptive into fire.
We're at our Ngama Stage 2 release site today.
So yeah, we're about to go in and try and dart fire.
We'll be inserting a contraceptive implant into one of the females, Fire. It's just going to hold her from breeding for about 18 months to about 2 years until we're ready to breed with her again.
Sort of touch and go as we arrive, depending on the location of the lions, where they're going to be.
Pretty used to both the vehicles we're taking.
Milo's the one we're worried about. He's a pretty aggressive male, so it's all going to be dependent on where he is. We're going to try and get him away from the rest of the pride.
So I imagine the adults will be fine. The cubs will be pretty skittish. Wakanaka is naturally very skittish, so they'll hopefully get out of the way naturally.
It's quite cool today, so we'll just need to keep all our safety guards on check. We have got 2 of our vets that we work with quite closely here today, and we're hoping everything's going to go smoothly. It should.
Fingers crossed.
Seems to be when you're looking for the lion, you can never find her. And the one that we need has just disappeared today. So she's either gone off by herself, obviously maybe to hunt, or she's joined up with the rest of the females and they're sitting somewhere in the long grass and we can't see them. Okay, we've got Nanya in the bush just here on the right. She's obviously followed Kenge, but she's part of the group that fire's not in. Just got Kenge coming up the road here now, which is not the one we're looking for. We've got Milo in front of us here as well. But it's obviously, it just looks like the same group that we came across earlier. Now, Fire doesn't look like she's here. Wait, hang on. There's one in the grass, hang on, wait. There's two of them, she's here. Fire. We've got Ashanti in front, Nala, and then Fire's right in the shrubs at the back. We're going to have to wait for a bit of a clear visual in order to dart, because of the grass and everything's in front of her, it might deter the dart a bit.
So far, so good. The only trick now is to get Fire out in the open for a clear shot.
Now the rest of the group that we found in the beginning have now rejoined Fire's group. Now it's going to be get a bit more technical now because we've got the cubs, we've got Milo and the rest of the females, so it might be a bit more trickier trying to separate her once she's been darted. We can't really tell how they're going to react now, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes.
A clear angle presents itself, and this shot needs to count.
Okay, just take that time.
It's perfect, and the drug begins to take effect. Luckily, all the females scattered, but Milo is always the tough one to move as he becomes curious. Persuasion from the vehicles has done the job. Now the team must act quickly, as they have a short window to work in.
Whoa.
Other lions are concerned and follow. One never wants these exercises to alarm them, but they have to be done to keep the right balance in the pride. This management enclosure on the edge of the release site was built especially for these occasions and make it easier for Fire to re-enter the site when she comes round. The professional team launch into action and take this opportunity to release the tracking collar that is no longer needed. Take a temperature reading, check general health conditions, measure body parts and record all data relevant to the program. The contraceptive is injected, followed by the reversal drug. A final gum and teeth examination shows she is gingivitis-free and very healthy. The business end of a lion can always be daunting, but intriguing to see close up, and a sober reminder of why they are considered to be the king of the beasts.
Wait for her to wake up now and then let her back in with others.
Fire makes a groggy recovery 15 minutes later, and all is well. The sliding gate will be opened for her as soon as she has total control of her coordination to join the others. The following morning, Ray makes her usual rounds in the Angamo release site to find that the Pride have made yet another zebra kill overnight. Milo is being possessive as usual, and only allowing baby Kanyisa to feed with him. Milo walks off for a moment, and it's a good cue to sneak in for Kenge. For a minute.
Milo just momentarily finished feeding and moved off. It looked like he was going to go drink at waterhole 3, where we think the rest of the pride are. And Kenge's just seen her opportunity and has just skulked over and managed to feed. But he's obviously heard her or seen her, and he's just come racing back. But she stood her ground. I think he's just sat there growling, isn't actually feeding, and she's tucking in quite nicely. That often happens. He'll come and throw his weight around, growl a bit, won't actually feed, and the females will eventually just ignore him and start to feed around him instead, and the cubs do the same. So hopefully she'll, get a good few mouthfuls now.
For a change of scenery, let's take you over to the MK lions.
Right, we're about to take out the MKs for another trial. They're still quite hungry, and last time they got very, very close, so hopefully this time they'll bring down something for us.
The MKs are at their best when there's cool weather, and they take play to a new level.
Now, when lions play, they've got a habit of ankle tapping each other. Basically, this play comes in handy, obviously, when they're hunting, because they'll ankle tap their game and trip them up in order for them to catch them properly. Out of this group, Mara and Kali are the two best hunters so far. Mika, she's still getting there. She does participate in some of the hunts, but I think she'll be better as a breeding female than as a hunter. Moyo, the male, he's still a bit skittish, but he does participate in the hunts sometimes, so I think he'll get there as well.
Today, most of the plains game are alert and giving the lions no chance at all. A small distraction scurries down a hole, and Mika can't resist. Too quick for the naked eye, we'll have to slow down the sighting to see what it is.
Oh, now they're going to dig them out of that hole now. Mika has just chased a family of banded mongooses into the hole. Kali's coming to have a look now to see what's going on. Sometimes they will actually dig them out of the hole. So we'll just see what they do with these guys. Now Mara's coming to the picture now. She seems quite keen on what's inside the holes. There seems to be 2 holes, and the mongooses are making noise. She's getting a bit confused on actually where the noise is coming from.
Moyo is also drawn to the action, but soon loses his attention. Surely there are better things to chase and eat around here. This afternoon, Ray is doing her routine Ngama Pride visit, only to find Milo doing what he does best, feasting on another zebra. With bellies bulging, how can these lions possibly eat any more?
So this is their second zebra kill in just over a 24-hour period. Which isn't surprising, really. We've had situations where they've had 3 in about 12 hours, and I've found them sometimes on kills and they've left a vast amount of the carcass. Even when bellies are full like this, they will still kill if an opportunity arises. They're opportunistic hunters. Whether they're killing for the fun of it we'll never know, but they more than likely are. They will go on a feeding frenzy and knock off as much as they can. And yeah, sometimes waste it. They've got it pretty good in here in stage 2 because they don't have competitive species like hyena to clean up what they leave. Come stage 3, when they are there, they're going to have to learn. It'll be a steep learning curve. They can't be leaving meat. They usually utilise a vast majority of it. But yeah, they're having a bit of fun at the moment, I think, with these zebra.
With no sign of the 4 cubs, Ray has a hunch they could be at one of the waterholes and follows up to check.
The cubs have, quite surprisingly, just covered quite a large distance by themselves to come drink at the waterhole. I think the rest of the adults and Mother Ashanti has been here a while. They're starting to get their bearings up the release site, so they will have known they've been here, but they've strayed off quite a distance, and in the wild they would have put themselves at serious risk from predation by doing so. It's also nice to see that they do have that confidence, and it was Cora who led. I don't think the others would have gone otherwise, but she's quite boisterous. She's definitely the leader of the little crash. Milo's just turned up and has dragged the entire carcass to the waterhole rather than leaving it. He has eaten a lot of it, to be fair, but still, that's a seriously possessive lion. All the females have risen, trying to have a look and a sniff, but he's not having any of it. He'll leave it just now and drink, I would have thought, maybe.
Ray is quite right, as Milo finally leaves the kill for a while to quench his thirst. With the most enormous belly, it's no wonder Milo has to rest and digest. His cubs haven't given up on munching away, but one by one, they'll soon join Milo in sleep heaven. The Peas are on another early morning walk with tourists, handlers and volunteers. Every walk is so different, and you never quite know what the lions are going to come across. Today, it's an unsuspecting tortoise, and Pazza takes great delight in this finding. Lions have a wonderful, or not so wonderful, habit of not sharing. And Pena finds this unbearable. Pena will have to look on with jealousy as Pazza takes her possessive behaviour to a new level. Pazza makes it quite clear that this is her game, but Pena is convinced that this is her time to take over. Or not. Pena cannot take no for an answer, and Pazza drives her point home again. How much longer can this go on for? The game is finished when Pazza decides it's finished, and they become best of friends once again. By the way, the tortoise miraculously survived the rude intrusion, and although shell-shocked, walked off when the coast was clear. Back at the Ngama release site, the Pride have done the unthinkable.
We've just arrived in the Kruger area, and not surprisingly, they've taken off another zebra, and it looks like they've eaten quite a lot. I have a feeling this might be the other stallion, who's more than likely roaming by himself. Yeah, it's a lot of money gone in 24 hours, but it's great to see them eating game meat. Kenge and Kwali are now, have just made their way further towards the carcass. Kenge's quite dominant in the hierarchy. Kwali varies. Sometimes she's quite low down, but she shadows fire, she adores fire, and more than often we see those two socially interacting. Kwali usually initiates with a greet, and then there's a lot of social licking, and this does Kwali a lot of favours in terms of her position in the hierarchy. Sometimes we've had looking at numbers, about third out of all the females, and this is mainly down to her relationship with fire. She's the dominant female. I want to be buds with the dominant female to do me favours in the Pride. He'll eventually cool off, get fed up, sleep somewhere, and she'll be able to get in and get a nibble, and her sister Nala. But Fire often gives Milo a run for his money and gets a good feed.
On this gluttonous note, we have to leave you here, but you cannot miss the next episode when we join the P and L lions as they walk and stalk. Meat preparation gets weird for some, as our volunteers make dinner time more interesting. As per usual, the Ngama Pride gets scrappy over scraps. A first-time night encounter with Laili and Lewa provides non-stop action and an impala's worst nightmare. A brave zebra stallion takes the fight to the ever-confident L lions. And a historical moment is notched up for Wakanaka as she proves her predatory prowess.